What's up, everyone? This is Niyi Adewale, host of the Ekabo Home Financial Freedom Mastermind Group. This group meets virtually every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and the members of this group are committed to achieving financial freedom well before the traditional retirement age. So in this podcast, you are going to get VIP access to the conversations we have about different forms of investment and creative ways to get your dollars working harder for you than you originally worked to obtain those dollars. John, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Hey, long time no see. I've been good, man.
Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of weeks here with everything. I actually just got engaged.
Really? Hey, congrats, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
So yeah, it's been busy planning that, and then I had some other family stuff and some late meetings. But yeah, excited to be back. How have you guys been?
Been good, man. Been good. We've been lining up some pretty cool interviews. I'm looking forward to those getting edited and put out starting next week. There's going to be some one-on-ones, so I'm excited about that. And I think somebody should be reaching out to you if they haven't already, because I'd love to get you on to finish what we were talking about from a wealth building strategy, because we were starting to get deep and then the whole thing cut off. So my apologies on that piece.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, that sounds great. It'd be great to talk about that stuff. It's something we're really excited about. We tend to work in kind of similar spaces with entrepreneurial people, high income, or just mass affluent, where taxes really become an issue, or we just want to get creative with solutions. So yeah, it's fun to talk about.
Absolutely. And I know when we were talking before, you were working through a merger. Has that finalized, and is it slowing down a little bit or still accelerating?
Yes. So we signed the papers. Everything's official in ink. We just got to get things through compliance. So hopefully there'll be a press release going out this week or next week. And then I'm going to make some posts and stuff to make that official, like via social media and stuff. So yeah, it's through all the attorney phases, and now it's just making sure we crush it in 2022. And, it's a mutually beneficial relationship for everyone involved.
That is awesome, man. I'm rooting for you through 2022, and definitely looking forward to get you on to learn more about this, because, selfishly, I actually need to start moving into this space and maximizing, where my dollars are going.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Always happy to talk. It's cool. It's fun. It's creative. I love what I do. And it's really cool being a part of these conversations and just other communities that get involved with all that stuff. So happy to anytime.
Perfect. And today we're joined by a newer member. Bo, welcome, man. If you wouldn't mind just giving a little bit of your background and kind of what you're looking to do, on your first call. We try to put you on the spot and learn more about you.
Come on with it. I appreciate it. My name is Bo Nixon. I am 26. I did some time in the military. I am currently a firefighter. I am looking to get into some long-term rentals, do some flips just to build some capital to maintain those long-term rentals. I have two now, looking to buy a third one here in a couple months. But yeah, I'm trying to get into some real estate investing as fast as I can, and trying to connect with the right people to get me there.
Absolutely. And John can attest, there's a lot of people that join this call on a week-to-week basis that are investing in real estate, and a couple of them based in Atlanta, including myself. So we're looking forward to connecting with you, and some of them may be joining a little later. But kind of continuing our conversation from earlier, purposely set up these calls to give a forum where anytime we could join and start having these conversations and helping each other out on a weekly basis. And I think we started getting into some of the systems, right? But we didn't actually fully flesh out the conversation. Did you have any other questions that popped up after we hung up?
Yeah, after I talked to you, I started thinking about a couple of different things and some questions I would have liked to ask you. But when we did talk on the phone, you said that, you had put systems in play to where it didn't matter if it was 3 to 4 tenants or, buying a 12-plex to where you have 15 or 16 tenants. And to me, does that have a cap? Do you have a plan for when that 15 becomes 60? And how's that going to change your life, and how's that going to change the way that you operate your business?
It definitely does. And I can tell you that for the systems I had in place and the way I was doing it, my cap was 15. All right. And the reason was when we took over those 12 units, we were able to get it for a deal for $500K, but it's because there was some deferred maintenance and they didn't have the best tenants in there. Right. So we had to deal with a couple of evictions, turnovers. And oh, by the way, I actually got a promotion at work and moved to Boston during that time. So I was however many miles, Boston is from Louisville, Kentucky. That's how far I was. And so I managed it myself for the first 8 months through partnerships with different maintenance professionals and things of that nature. And also my realtor, who's a rock star down there. And then I went to transition it over to property management. And I can tell you that if you're able to build it up to a level to where you have enough that you can negotiate with property management, that's what I would always recommend, right? So if I was still living in Louisville, I think I could have managed the 15, but that on top of the W-2, it started to get a little hectic to where I was spending too much time on this and not enough on the W-2. And so I transitioned to property management. And I can tell you the first property manager I had, it was not good. Okay. I stuck with them for a year, and I can give you an anecdote that when I went to switch away from them, how you're supposed to keep your security deposits completely separate, not touch it at all. Right. So it took us 3 months and a letterhead from a lawyer to get them to find a way to come up with the security deposits, because apparently it was commingled. And that's just one of the issues, right? They weren't returning tenant calls, things of that nature. So I definitely didn't pick the first one right. The second one, I did a lot better. I came in there, battle scarred, asking all the right questions. What systems do you have in place? How do I see what you're spending? How do I see, receipts, things of that nature? And the second one's who I'm with today, and they've done a much better job of managing. And it's allowed me to take it from 15 units to 25. And I think I mentioned it earlier. Now we're selling the 12 units, appreciated so much. We're going to sell it and flip that money into, something newer and something bigger.
And what's your biggest takeaway on how you, for lack of better terms, sorry to be blunt, but how you messed up the first time and got it right the second time?
No, that's fair. That's fair. I definitely messed it up, man. It wasn't. So I took it at face value, right? I asked questions, but I really only met with, I think, 2 property managers, right? I wasn't scarred yet to meet with a bunch of them. And I didn't ask the question of, hey, how many units are you managing? I asked that question, but the other one I didn't ask was, how many staff do you have handling those units? And so what it turned out to be, it was really a family business. I think it was maybe 3 people handling 500 units. And at a certain point, it gets to be too much for that staff to handle. And they didn't have the right systems in place to do the maintenance stuff, to get back to tenants, to even show the units correctly. And so with this new company, they have a ratio of roughly 1 staff member to 100 units, but they've split it up every which way. So if you have a leasing question, you send an email to leasing. If you have a maintenance question, you send something to maintenance. If you want to talk to the owner and you have enough units and things of that nature, you can meet with them on a consistent basis so that you can cover kind of everybody. But they have systems for everything, even showings, right? Tenants have to give them guests have to give them their license. And they have like a digital keypad on there, and they take the license. They're allowed to go check out the unit, and they come back and they get their license back and potentially fill out an application in person. And so those type of systems are what was lacking. And it goes back to the whole conversation we were having earlier around systems, right? You don't want to have property management team that's dependent on 2 or 3 people. It needs to be dependent on a system that's run by a bunch of people. Yeah. And so from that standpoint, highly recommend just asking those questions. But if you're able to manage it until you get to a point where you can negotiate, which is typically double-digit units, that would be ideal. Because prior to having the 15 units, I think the pricing was right around 9 or 10%. But after I got to the 15 and then 25, I was able to negotiate down to 8 and then 6% of the rent for the property management.
Absolutely. So in your opinion, and I know situations differ drastically across the board, but in your opinion, as long as I can handle my W-2 and manage these properties,
Do it.
it's not dumb to do that. I mean, right now I only got two, so I mean, I'm answering one text message a month, and I'm worried about 2 rent payments, and that's about it. So it's not a big deal for me to manage it right now. If that was 15 and I'm worried about everybody's problems, then yeah, things get a little hectic and I need to have some systems in place. But right now, it just doesn't make sense financially to go that route as of right now.
And I would agree. And I'd also caveat that and add on to it to say that no one else is going to care about your properties as much as you do, right? It's almost like when you have a project due, or you have, something that everybody like, hey, this park is for everybody, right? And there's litter in the park. If there's not a designated person that, hey, you're responsible for taking the litter, if it's just everybody, we're going to look at each other and say, hey, I'm not picking it up. I didn't put this here, right? This should be you. Whereas if you designate somebody, that's going to be their job. They'll go pick it up. And so what I'm getting at with that is your property, you're going to care so much more about that than the property management would. Because when you look at the numbers, how could they, right? If you're making $1,000 a month, they're potentially at max making about $100 a month on that. And so what you make in 1 month, they'll make in 10 months. So they really got to prioritize the volume. And so if you're able to hang on to it and keep managing it yourself, highly recommend it until you get to a big enough point to where it's like, hey, this is starting to take away from what I'm trying to do outside of real estate.
Absolutely.
John, so outside of getting engaged and continuing to work through the merger, and congrats again, man, what else you got going on?
Setting up a nice little simple IRA for myself and gonna try to max that stuff out. And not much. We want to get a fence, get a dog. It's too many expenses coming up when you aren't single anymore and you can't control all your money. I'm 26 as well, just turned 26 2 weeks ago. So this year's really kind of focused on that, just growing, educating myself, continuing to grind that out, and then hopefully be in a really good position, this year or next year to buy a tiny house, AirBNB up in the Poconos, and then start doing a short-term rental with that.
I love it, man. I love it. And the short-term rental game is, as you know, one that I'm passionate about right now.
Yes.
I actually just made it through the gauntlet of the new license change in Atlanta. And Bo, I know you're around this area, but if you haven't been keeping up with the short-term rentals, all these major cities are coming down with laws, right? And I think John's doing it the right way. Going to the Poconos, which has always been a travel type of place. They probably already have established laws to where you don't got to worry. But in Atlanta, it wasn't established. It was the Wild Wild West. And so they recently released an ordinance that's pretty strict, saying you can only have a short-term rental here. One, if you live here, you have to live in the city of Atlanta and pay taxes here.
Shoot.
You have to list your primary residence can be one. And thankfully I have that. And then you can only have one more outside of that. And so everybody's freaking out. I'm in these Facebook groups and people are like, man, do I need to sell this? And long story short, I got my approval last Friday. So I'm excited. And the deadline is April 1st. So if you don't have it by April 1st and you're still operating, they can hit you with a $500 fine per day. And so what I believe this is going to do is weed out a lot of people, right? The people that were not serious, some of the people that were doing rental arbitrage, because now you got to get approval from your landlord who may not have known you were doing that in their apartment building. And it's going to make it a lot more attractive for the ones that are still there because people are still coming to Atlanta. But
yeah,
John,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with that being said, what does that do? I know you said you're passionate about it, and this is kind of like a new area for you, a new niche for you. What does that do for you in the future, though? If you have, your two currently, is that it for you? Is that a wrap?
Absolutely not.
Atlanta's cooked?
Well, for Atlanta, you'd have to kind of work around it. I think it's going to continue to evolve, but 2 is not enough, man. I had goals of having 7 in Atlanta. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to happen, but because I have the systems in place, I've got my cleaners and I'm managing a couple around here. What I'm looking for my next one is just outside of Atlanta. Some of the other cities like Marietta, East Point, College Park, Hapeville, Decatur, they haven't put laws in place yet. And the laws that they're proposing are a lot less strict. You don't have to live in the city. You just got to pay a licensing fee every year. and you can't have any violations, right? And so I'm going to start planting seeds in each of these neighboring cities, right? So it's still quote unquote, Decatur's like right there. It's still quote unquote Atlanta, Hapeville, College Park might as well be Atlanta. And so
Right, absolutely.
I'm going to plant in those cities. And the reason I'm so passionate about the short-term rentals is I have a goal to move into full-time real estate by the end of 2024. And I believe that the short-term rentals are going to help me supplement the income that I currently make from my W-2 to get there quicker so that I can start to focus on what you're focused on, Bo, which is the ultimate game plan, long-term rentals that you can have somebody else manage for you and be more passive.
Absolutely. And that's going to get you there. That's going to be able to get you there quicker. How many are you going to need to be able to supplement the income that you have? Is 7 enough, or are you just looking for 7 in Atlanta and you're gonna diversify that in other areas as well?
Yeah. So I think the 7 around Atlanta would work. And the reason I want to kind of keep it here is, one, I've done the numbers here, and by 2030, they say another 2.8 million people are going to move here. You've got multiple Fortune 500 companies based in the Atlanta area, and it's only growing. You see moving trucks every day. And so when I look at just the prices and what they're going to do because of all the money we put in the market, and John could probably speak to this better than I can, but literally 40% of the money we have in the market now was created over the last 2 years through COVID and other things. It was needed, but it's a lot of money. And I believe we all need to be in hard assets like real estate. And so I'm buying in great neighborhoods, and I'm able to cash flow them using Airbnb. And coming back to answer your question, yes, I believe those 7 are going to be enough to kind of cover my income, along with the property management, which I didn't even consider as an avenue. Just to give you some of the numbers, right? From a property management standpoint, with my short-term rental, typically you can expect to make between $400 to $600 a month if you're taking 20%, which I do, on each of those. And I currently manage 6 of them. So in a high month, 6 times 6, I currently manage 4, and then I have 2 my own. So in a high month, 6 times 4 is 2,400, right? If I'm able to get that up to, a couple more, I plan to take on 2 more in the next month and a half. So that'd be 3,600. It's starting to look good. Plus I'm a realtor. So as I start to build that business up, I think it's going to all snowball and allow me to move into full-time real estate, start taking some of these there goes Bo, start taking some of these tax benefits and kind of moving forward from there.
That's awesome, man.
One thing I had, it's again, a little bit of a selfish question because I'm looking to move into full-time real estate and I really want to understand this piece. So right now, John, I got a 401k. I'm doing that with the company and it's cool, right? But you can't access that until, 59 or 62. I'm not sure. But you mentioned simple IRA that you're setting up for yourself. Mm-hmm. Once you move into full-time real estate, I'm sure you deal with a couple clients. What does that piece look like? Are you supposed to keep doing the 401k or can you roll that into something else? What does it look like?
Yeah. So like when you leave your W-2 or your full-time employment, like what happens to your 401k? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And is there a way to move it to other assets? I've heard of this before. I just haven't looked into it.
Yeah. So I believe there is. I haven't dealt with that too much just because from like CFP standard and regulations and everything, we're so heavily regulated right now to always make sure that we're doing what's in the client's best interest. And unfortunately, a lot of times that means not being very entrepreneurial with money and keeping it somewhat safe. So if we typically either will roll a 401k into an IRA or a simple IRA or a SEP IRA, which is everything that an individual could own outside of their employer-sponsored plans. Simple IRAs and SEP IRAs are typically for business owners or sole proprietors. So with a simple, you can put in $13,500 a year. With a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, you're capped at $6,000. So it's not much money to put away. And then a SEP IRA, you can contribute $57,000 a year to it or 25% of your earnings, whichever is less. So like for our clients, I could not advise someone to take their 401k and liquidate it to put into real estate, because if they're under the age of 59 and a half, they're going to deal with a 10% penalty, and they're going to have to pay ordinary income tax on that. Now, something you might be able to do if you can partner with the right bank or the right lender is collateralize that asset and say, hey, this might be tied up in this account, but I have this money, it's here. If I ever get into hot water, you can take it from me. Now, you would still have to pay the 10% penalty and the taxes on that money. But if you're dealing with a lender that is mostly worried about getting paid if you default on the loan, it might be something to entice them to allow you to borrow more money from them. And in real estate, I mean, the biggest thing we tend to deal with is leverage. How much leverage can we get? How much capital can we get to put somewhere else?
That is interesting. And thank you for breaking that down. So up to 57K for a set. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And to your point, I like the using it as almost like how you do a HELOC on the equity you have in your home. You would do, I guess, for lack of a better term, a HELOC on the equity that you have in your 401k, potentially.
Sorry, I was just unplugging headphones so that I could hear you. What was that?
Yeah. So similar to how you do a HELOC on the equity in the home that you live in, this is like potentially doing like a HELOC, for lack of a better term, on the money that you have in your 401k.
Yep. Yeah. So setting up we do a lot of private banking relationships with our clients, whether it's with M&M Bank or Tri-State Capital. And a lot of these banks will lend money at very low rates, especially if it's a variable interest rate. And so if you're well insulated, if you have safe assets that you can collateralize, if you have market tied assets and then passive income, variable rates aren't a bad thing, because for the past 3 years, they were giving out 1% interest rates that were variable. Now that's going to go up. And on a mortgage, that's not great because you're locked into a 30-year mortgage. But if you're on a loan that you already have the money, that you could pay off that loan with some safe assets or bonds or fixed income, well, then that variable rate's not really a risk, because worst case scenario, they pump it up to 10%, 12%, and we just shift money around, pay off the loan, and then go and get a fixed rate at a lower percentage. So private banking relationships, they'll lend money and you can collateralize certain assets. Typically, it's non-qualified investment accounts. So things that are not tied to 401ks or IRAs, so that they know you can take that money out if you need to. And most banks will give you a 50% line of credit against that portfolio. So if we have a client with $500,000 in Google stock, someone we're actually dealing with right now, he's got $1.6 million in Google stock. And that's 70% of his portfolio, and then he's got a property and stuff. But it's very, very risky because it carries a lot of idiosyncratic risk. So what we're looking to do is set up a line of credit with a private bank to give us a line of credit for $1.6 million so that we can invest that into a diversified portfolio. And then slowly over time, if we want to sell out of that Google stock, but because he's attached to it, we don't want to, liquidate it all, go into a different portfolio, because you would also realize a lot of capital gains. So we'll just set up lines of credit, borrow money, put it in other areas that are well diversified and we can have some strategy around. And then we can use that line of credit to purchase other assets, like hard assets and things like that. And then life insurance, why I like life insurance a lot is, if you build it up enough, and it's different for different people, but you can borrow up to 97%. So you could have $100,000, $200,000 in cash value because it's not tied to the stock market. And you could go to one of these private banks and they'll typically give you a line of credit for 97% of your cash value. And when the cash value is growing at 5% and the line of credit's charging you 3%, and you use that line of credit to purchase property and then take the interest they charge against you as a tax deduction as a business venture, it's pretty cool. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not like everyone and anyone can do it. And it takes a long time or just really creative process and a lot of money to typically get that stuff set up.
And John, I love hearing about this because it opens your mind to the possibilities. And this is where we want to get to, right? We want to have individuals on this call reaching out to you and being able to say, hey, I'm going to go get that 97% line of credit. I'm going to go get that 50% line of credit on some stock or a portfolio of properties that I have. So we're definitely going to get you on to go into more detail on this, because I can ask questions all day. But
Yeah.
I want to switch gears a little bit and jump into Radim. I know you were working on a remodel of the house, right? Were you going to do Airbnb and an event space?
Like I said, right now my focus is just getting the event space up, the space and everything ready, and then once I get it up, I'll make a determination whether I want to do Airbnb, event space, and things like that. But I'm just in the process of just the remodel and just finishing the construction part.
Okay, and I know that you do a lot. Like you've in the past done a lot by yourself, by hand, and now you kind of hire out a couple people. On the line, we have Bo, who is new to the group, and he's in a similar situation where he's done some of the work himself. Bo, can you give Radim a little bit of your background from a construction standpoint on houses?
Yeah, man. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a lot of different things. As of right now, I'm currently in the middle of a remodel for a flip, and we have it down to the studs, and we're about to start rebuilding. I've been building fences for about 10 years now. That's what I first started doing. I grew up on a farm, so I've been building fences since I could walk. But I don't really do much electrical or do much plumbing. But other than that, we refinish floors, we reframe walls, we rebuild bathrooms and kitchens, and do some light sheet work stuff. We usually hire that kind of stuff out, the repairs and patches and stuff. I do that. But for the most part, we do pretty much everything. Other than, we pull wire, but we don't do the electrician part of it.
I don't blame you on that. That electrical is
yeah. When the power gets cut on, that's when I take a step back.
This is true. And Radim, I know we had a one-on-one a couple of weeks ago, and that episode's in editing. It'll come out later, but would you mind talking through a little bit of how you've transitioned from doing all the work yourself to having a crew and things of that nature?
Yeah, like I just said, I've been doing it for a minute, like 17, 18 years, but lately, it's just been getting a lot. When you're in this business, you can't really just do it by yourself. You just spread yourself thin, you know that. So, just running through different people and just trying to outsource little things like the hard things, the tedious things, the compounding, the dusting, the painting, like the framing and everything. Like the big meat and potatoes is actually the easy part. You know that. But it's the the trim. So just trying to build teams and affiliations where I can just, hey, listen here, y'all come in, y'all finish this, and just trying to get a good team, a reliable team. So I just been resourced. I'm actually in that transition now. It's so much up and down because people not reliable. Sometimes you just have to do it yourself. It just come down a pipeline like that. But yeah, I'm in a transition where I'm just getting several different people and not just being relying on one set of crew and things like that.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you're here for the first part of this call, but I'm relatively new to this game, man. And construction part of it, I'm not really that new to it. I've been doing it a little while, but the entrepreneurial part of it, the flipping or the renting homes, I'm new to it. So doing this for myself, I'm relatively new at it. How do you, I should say, if you're still in the process, how do you qualify somebody for that job? And have you run into problems of those guys just not caring enough about your place? Because I'm a little picky on a bunch of these things, and I have had guys do some work for me where I've had to go back behind them and do it the way that I would have done it in the first place.
Well, unfortunately, like sometimes you go by their reputation, but sometimes like people have even people with good reputation. It's a feel thing for me. So I give people a lot of chances. Unfortunately, it's just part of some of the risk. You just go through a lot of people till you find that right person, and then you stick with them. You stick with them, and you just ride it. You just hopefully you find good, reliable people. And sometimes I always rest on the fact that I know the work. So even if somebody do kind of mess up, I can come behind them. But it's pretty much trial and error. Because you could have somebody with a great reputation, but they might fall. By the time you meet them, they might have, y'all might have had, they might have done something wrong, or you never know. You just gotta go through different people and just to find that right person.
Another question for you. To me, I mean, across the board, I would say, maybe not for you guys, but for me, across the board, finding deals is the hardest part of this game, and it always makes it a little bit easier, gives me a little bit bigger cushion, or I can mess up a little worse than you guys can, because I know that I can save a bunch of money because I'm putting the work in. I'm not paying that out. I'm not putting money on the table for myself to, I have leeway, or I have room to mess something up, or if I messed up analyzing the numbers, it's going to be okay, because I'm going to make that up because I'm doing the work. How have you overcame that? Like, has it changed the way you analyze deals, I guess is what I'm saying?
No, that's our advantage. So, by you knowing this work, that's our advantage. You're only as good as your contractor, period. Point blank, you either going to make it with your contractors or you're not. That's the most important part. So that's the advantage. So sometimes I can go into a deal and overpay, just because to get that deal done. You got to understand that it's not even a lot of houses available sometimes. It's really just booming. So sometimes you do have to overpay, but we can compensate it because we are contractors. So us knowing the work give us our advantage where we can, overextend or make that mistake. So it works in our favor. It works in our favor. And then to answer your question, to go back to when you say, how do you figure out people? Sometimes when you'll know what you work for as a contractor, and you'll know how to pay certain things. So sometimes you can kind of like hold up certain money, upfront money, and really have a contractor work for the back end to keep them honest, so they can see the project all the way through. Because sometimes a lot of contractors, they'll get a lot of upfront money, and they don't have no incentive to stay there, so they'll kind of like take on other jobs and leave your job. But if you can kind of structure your deal, making it less upfront and having them get the finishing pay at the back end instead of us on the back end, they tend to see the project longer.
Piggybacking off of that, Radim, I literally had a long conversation this morning with my flipper that I partner with out here. And that's what we were talking about. Sent her some documents that I used in the past. And I learned very quickly that is an important skill, putting together a solid scope of work so that you both understand, hey, this is exactly how it needs to be laid out, paint colors, all this stuff, and then setting up a fee structure and focusing on that. I'm a fan of project-based pay as opposed to hourly, because I truly believe that hourly, people can waste time. But with a project-based pay, it's in your best interest to get this done and get it done right so that you can get the draws. And to Radim's point, I never pay that last 50% until the end of the project when it's completed. And I'll always add in a little caveat and I'll give you a story to tell you about the caveat. So when I moved to Atlanta, I wanted to try out the short-term rental game. So I bought a dope single family with an in-law suite in the basement. The in-law suite used to be the workout room for the previous owners. All I did was shut the door that led to the inside, switched out the lock, and then I got a contractor to put a kitchenette into that in-law suite. The kitchenette cost about $12K, right? Because we had to pull plumbing and all this other stuff. But they said it was going to take roughly 2 months or maybe 6 weeks to get it done. So I gave them an extra 2 weeks of leeway. I said, okay, if you can get this done in 8 weeks per our agreement, this is the amount you're going to get. I think I gave about 25% up front. I gave another 10% or 20% when they got midway through, and the other 50% was on the back end. But I put a caveat in there. For every day that you're past this 8-week date, and again, you said you could do it in 6, but every day you're past this 8-week date, there's going to be $100 per day penalty taken off that last payment. And I can tell you they missed the date, right? A couple factors popped in. They jumped into somebody else's job, to Radim's point. But when they missed the date and they started getting those penalties, they came back and they finished it within 7 days, right? because there was that carrot at the end and they knew, hey, we're losing money after we did all this work?
Absolutely. I'm gonna give you a story right quick. Sometimes when you know the construction, you can kind of like gauge it a little better. So I had this concrete job, and I've been honest. I said, look, man, the last concrete guy that I did, he pretty much ran off. So I can't really give you 50% to start. I said, to be honest with you, I said, I'll come down and pay you the second day that you're on the job. And this just was a tester because I know that they probably have a crew, and the first one is just breaking up the concrete set and everything. It's really no real materials like really kicked out. This just the tester.